let's pivot into kind of the startup entrepreneur investor that is John Smalley. So, like, how did that kind of going from big corporate to being an entrepreneur investor? How did that transition happen?
Yeah, well, I'd always had this kind of desire to go try and bet on myself. I'm a big believer in like bet on yourself. I had this weird vision, Justin, of one day like laying on my deathbed and like literally thinking like, John, you've created this really nice, call it upper middle class life for yourself in corporate America, but you never bet on yourself. And I've been fortunate to have a lot of success in corporate America. I always moved up relatively fast and I made a lot of other people a lot of money. So at some point I just knew I was going to have to test the waters. Probably contrary to what people at Maxim would want to hear, I started my first business while I was at Maxim. I was in charge of basically taking over the worst territories and fixing them up and deciding if we were going to shut them down or purpose them or let them go and try to get them to grow to the point where the company wanted them to be. And I realized pretty quickly that those skill sets were universal. I actually had a friend of mine ask me if I could help him with his company. His issue was not cash flow. He had plenty of cash. He lacked strategy. And I was able to work with him. And he was an influential guy in town. We helped this company grow quite a bit. He paid me for that. And that was the beginning of my career as a consultant. So the first company I created was a company called Bold Horizons, which now does multiple things. So that was the first one. So to be fair, when I left, I had already had two businesses in the mix. I had an opportunity to start another one. So yeah, I saw what was going to happen and I went ahead and utilized my time at corporate America to let me get somewhat down that path. And I'm proud to say that I did that not at the sacrifice of corporate America.
Right.
I'm not suggesting that people do that, but I do think if you're willing to put in the extra, if you're willing to work 65, 70 hours a week for a year, you can move something forward while still receiving your paycheck and performing a good service for the company you work for.